Hi, this is Shifra, and I want to follow up on the previous video where I talked about the power of transforming your emotions and explain a little bit more why this is true and what's really going on here and why it's so important now in these times of incoming Geula. So I want to start, as I often try to do, by explaining in a very simple and brief way a very complex and deep topic in Kabbalah about the nature of our universe. So basically, for the purpose of this conversation, we want to talk about two different phases of reality: the primordial worlds, which were called the worlds of Tohu or chaos, which in simple sense means a world of infinite unbounded light. It's a world of infinity. The infinity was so great that nothing could hold it. And as the Kabbalistic metaphor goes, the light was so much bigger than the vessels, the lights of Tohu, these primordial worlds, so much bigger than the vessels that the vessels shattered and fell to this world in the form of holy sparks that became the source of all physical things. Okay, so that's the world of Tohu. Just remember, infinite unbounded lights that cannot be held in vessels. Then we have this world. This is the world of Tikkun, which means rectification, a world of great complexity, but where everything is measured, everything is limited. It's a world of finite, basically. The interesting thing about this world is there's an infinite amount of finite things, infinite numbers of finite things. It's a different kind of infinity. But everything has its own vessel. For example, if you have a mosquito, it's not going to invent or create a theory of relativity. If you have an elephant, it's not going to fit into a small shoebox. Everything has its scale, its hierarchy, its dimensions, its definitions, and it is what it is and it's not what it's not. So very limited, relatively speaking, lights contained by a very specific vessel and solidly held within that vessel. I know this is a very deep topic. I said this in the beginning, but I want to just give you enough information to get to the point. So think about it this way: just like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So your mind is from Tikkun, that world of many vessels containing more muted lights, and your mind is from, and your heart is from tofu. Your heart is from Tohu. So basically, your mind is logical, linear, contained, can hold many different thoughts, each in their own box. And your heart, your emotions are far more wild, uncontainable. Often it can feel like your emotions are so huge that they're shattering, right? I have shattering feeling. So this is not an accident. It's very much part of the scheme of creation, the template for creation, meaning that each of us have within our own being a representation or a fractal piece of an expression of tikkun in the mind and a fractal expression of tohu in the heart. Now, the fascinating thing is that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, in speaking about Geula, said that we need to do everything that we can to bring Geula out in reality, in manifestation. It's already here in potential, but in manifestation in a manner of orus de tohu and kelim de tikkun, which means the lights of tohu, the unlimited, and the vessels of tikkun, the limited, the rational, the contained. So there are many, 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 many ways to think about this. We're only touching on one, the very personal, to help us to experience a personal level of personal geula and to start to transform our own darkness into light. So what we want to do is to find a way to bring up our unconscious, unlimited, wild emotions, the ones that are just too big for us, whether it's a feeling of intense passion or desire, or whether it's a feeling of intense shame or guilt or sadness, whatever those emotions might be. If they feel too big for you, they're from tohu. And what we want to do is bring them up into the vessels of tikkun. The vessels of tikkun are very complex and solid. The vessels of tohu, as we said, were not strong enough to hold the light. Now, when you bring an emotion up to your consciousness, one that you would usually suppress, we talked about this in the previous video, how to do this. Not to react to the emotion, not to act it out, not to deny it or push it down, but simply to invite it up, to make space for it, to turn your mind into a kind of listening, like a satellite dish or a radio dish, picking up the feeling of the emotion, to explore it, to be curious, to ask questions about it, to send it love, to send it compassion, or simply to allow it to expand and take up more space within your being. You might experience this like a feeling of your chest actually expanding, or your stomach, or wherever you hold that emotion. We're just talking about the energy of the emotion, not the story. This is really important. This is a mastery subject and takes a lot of practice to really be good at it, but you can start to work with it right now. So what happens when you do that? You're taking a step back and you're looking at those emotions that you would normally react to, act out on, or push down or try to hide. Instead, you're inviting them up. You're giving them more space. You're curious. What part of you are you doing that with? The mind, tikkun. Your capacity, this is a soul power in here. The mind has many soul powers in it. And one of them is the ability to examine consciousness. So when you bring these emotions up to consciousness, what you're doing is taking that raw energy of tohu that really was too raw to do anything useful with. Tohu, when it's not in vessels, is destructive. That's one of the big secrets. When you put it in vessels, when you can expand vessels big enough and fluid enough to contain it, then it becomes extremely useful, because that's where the raw power is. That's where the unlimited infinite light is. That's where the unlimited godliness is in potential. But it's hidden within a form of darkness until we can bring it out into the vessels and turn it into light. So when you bring these raw emotions, this raw divine energy, this tohu energy into your consciousness, giving it enough time, over enough period, a long enough period of time, to examine it, to understand it, to feel it, to love it, to be curious about it. It raises its vibrational resonance. Which means it moves from a stuck state, like I am what I am, what I am, to something that starts to flow and can take different shape. But for the purposes of this conversation, even more, it brings it into the vessels of your mind, of tikkun. As your mind examines things it wasn't willing to examine, in a loving, neutral way, not reactive, inclusive. So the mind, this power of tikkun, of rectification, becomes a vessel that can hold a deeper light. This might not make rational sense at first, because the vessels of the mind need to expand. It's an ongoing practice, but it is more powerful and life-changing than I could possibly describe to you. And this is the reason why. Because we're able now to take the infinite lights of tohu and contain them in the expanded, that's where the work is, the expansion vessels of tikkun. And that is one manifestation of what is happening in Geula. Again, there are many different things to say about this, but this is one of the most powerful, personal, immediate, usable, and practical things you can do. So again, try it. Try it not for just a minute. Sometimes when the emotions come up, it might be uncomfortable. Just trust me that if you go deeper into them and do not separate them from the story, it's not about the story, it's not about words, it's about energy. It's about feeling the energy, that raw energy. When you're curious about it, when you're loving it, when you're examining it, when you understand that this is part of the process of Geula, you have divine assistance, and it will change form. You might have to do it a number of times. You might have to do it for a period of time. It can take seconds, it can take minutes, it can take hours. It can be done in a moment. It can be done in a day. It can be done over weeks. It could take months, even if it's a very raw emotion. But it will get easier. You will start to feel the amazing results pretty quickly. So again, let me know how this goes for you. You can comment underneath the video. You can send me an email, and I want to keep reminding you, if you'd like to know more, if you'd like to find out about whatever I'm up to, whatever I'm offering, and what's happening with me, sign up to get notices on my website, www.gateofunity.com. That's where you can find me, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. And I look forward to being with you again soon and exploring more of these totally transformational potentials that are flooding our world now. Why? Because the time of Geula has arrived. Many blessings and so much love from Jerusalem, the holy city.